Hi, I'm Laurie Dobson. Today is December 16th, 2021. I've recently done a video about Thanksgiving called Thanksgiving Travesty because I was really blown away by the experience of being rejected by my family, and I wanted to sort of make it real to people, make the human element of it real. So I'm a journalist also, and I just spent a week a couple months ago writing about the effects of the vaccine, and the injuries that people have had and the difficulties they've faced with the mandates and the lockdowns. And in Maine, one of 3 states that has decided to just reject its healthcare workers. And I'm an EMT that got taken off my job early on into this in October of 2020 because I questioned the mandates. So it's real. These things are really happening, and they've been going on now for, gosh, it's going into 2 years. So, we were all told this would end, and that's why we were willing. How many of us would have been willing to just stop our lives and, just dead stop if we knew they would still be doing these things now and lying to us. Just the other day, Boris Johnson was telling England that the cases of Omicron, which is it's just a ridiculous designation to begin with, and a ridiculous idea, but they'll throw anything at you if you're willing and gullible enough. And so he was saying that it was doubling every day. So they're figuring by Christmas, each person was going to be getting it once every 4 minutes. The numbers are preposterous. And another number that is, I don't think understood, is that the relative rate versus the absolute rate of a risk from taking it, in other words, how they can help you, improve you if you take a vaccine, it's like 1% average about each of the, they promised us 60, 70, 80%. Well, it's 1 point something percent. So all this agony, all this incredible social cost to everyone, people that are, suicides are up. Everything is difficult now. Families are being torn apart. I've never had such a difficult time with my family. Even when my father died, it was pretty bad. There was some poor behavior with family members around that event, and we were all just devastated. But that was something we knew we could get through eventually. Time supposedly heals all wounds, but this thing has legs. That's what it is. It's got the ability to keep on going because there seems to be no sign of them stopping. These vaccines, they're seemingly ongoing. They're coming out with more. They're saying you can use the latest vaccine to take care of the latest variant, but they're coming up with another one, and they're hard at work, and they should have it soon. This is just baloney. They had the vaccine for the Moderna. Had a vaccine already before this even came out, before the pandemic, the virus even got announced. And anybody that's has looked at it with a skeptical eye can find the information. And people are getting to where they're just, people that are like me who will not take the vaccine because they're not going to get bullied into it at this point. Are understanding that there is no way to deal with people who are pressuring you to take it to make them feel better or safer, because that isn't going to work. Because taking the vaccine didn't work. Taking 3 doses didn't work. Now it's everyone has to get it, but everyone can't get it because you can't keep having all these variants and say, oh, well, the last vaccine will work against the new variant. It's just a way to try to keep people doing what they want you to do, and then increasing at the same time all these other restrictions that have nothing to do with safety. And let's just be clear. This surgical mask is completely idiotic. It does not do anything. And no matter how much you suppress the information about blood clots, it's finally coming out. They started by saying it's extremely rare, evidence of thrombosis and strokes and clots and heart issues, inflammatory issues with hearts. These are now so prevalent that they can no longer say that they're extremely rare. And Johnson & Johnson is now having to list that as an issue with their vaccine. So we want more information. Pfizer wants to wait, 75 years before they let people know what their information is in terms of their licensing documents, including ingredients. And yet the FDA was supposed to come to the court hearing on the 14th, 2 days ago, and the FDA didn't show up. And they as an excuse, they said there were because of COVID, which is the grand excuse for everything on the planet. You can't do anything anymore because of COVID. It is the most convenient thing. It's better than the dog ate my homework. The classic excuses. It's beyond the classics. And it also is another convenience of people you don't really want to deal with anymore. All you have to do is just take a look at how they are deciding their own personal medical history and just decide, oh, that person can be canceled in my life. Or I can say horrible things about them, or I can promote myself in the family and get higher status and degrade that other person and humiliate them and make them feel like they're beneath your feet and worthy of contempt. And you will get support, of course, from Big Pharma, who's made, oh my God, the billions they've made, and the amount that it would take, was it 71 billion? It was so fantastical, Pfizer, and it would take such a small amount for them to figure out how to manage some of the problems that we're all having. But they're just raking them. They're just interested in their money and keeping it coming, and pushing the politicians to go along with it for a price. They will, of course, and as long as they keep people scared. And of course, the media, the whores, media whores, will do anything, whatever it takes, as long as they can create mayhem in people's lives. There are no ethics in journalism anymore, and I'm ashamed of this profession that I've been in. I don't recognize it anymore. NBC had a survey in October where people are now 50% are now thinking that they're against vaccine mandates, and there were other issues that were raised in the survey that showed they would support politicians, that they would not support politicians that were pushing it. So the tide will turn a little bit, but it won't really turn until we do the people sitting at the lunch counters again. And that's what's happening. Staten Island, 50 people walked through a guy who was standing there with his mask on, and he had to tell them that they weren't in there, and they said, well, we're not going to comply with that. And they just walked in with no masks, and the guy said, that's your prerogative, have a good day. And it's like, yeah, it's high time. It's high time we just stopped letting the fear turn us into these walled off, shelled creatures that are not human, that don't deserve to be given freedom. Freedom is an amazing thing. Freedoms, they're fought for. Each one has to be fought for because they're not handed to us. Vlad the Impaler went around with raw murderous power, barbarians, and, sacked countries, and, still at it. We're still doing terrible things, in our country and other countries, our government under the name of freedom. And yet it's a freedom we don't even offer ourselves or our people, and so unless we fight for them, these freedoms are which are disappearing because people are getting tired and discouraged and demoralized, and then they give up and they take the vaccine, and then what happens? They have to take another and another, and they're realizing, I think, finally, I've heard people that have taken two, but they say, I'm just not going to get that booster. I just can't see it. I don't see it. And there's a good expression saying, it's the first time in history where someone has to take a vaccine to when the success of a vaccine depends on those who are not taking it to be effective in those that are. If it is an effective vaccine, then it will work for you. If it's persistent, I mean, there wasn't, a decision to mandate smallpox, but that's because 30% mortality rate versus what this is 1%. This is anonymous. I'm synonymous with the flu. It has not ever gone over the flu's rates, not perceptibly, if you really look at the legitimate numbers. And then, and not just listen to those who lie for a profession on TV. You'll hear everything preposterous on TV. They just don't care. They don't care what they say. They're paid to say what Pfizer wants them to, and that's the person who's paid for that segment. So they're going to have, the news is going to just be in the hands and the pockets. So looking at the news, it's hard for us to catch up to the reality of the day, right? We're trying to fight lost battles. We want things to be the way they were. Well, they're not right now. Where they're at, it's deplorable. The news is not news. It's just propaganda. And we have to call the things what they are. The news media, it's propaganda machine. And these pharma people are pushing poisons because they're not doing the work that it would take to make sure that they're safe. And when they get adverse events, they are not calling them adequately what they are. They're making it too hard for doctors and nurses and others to adequately report. They make the times ambiguous and cut them off at certain times. But even so, there have been diligent efforts by many, many, many wonderful people to try to bring the truth to light. And then you do it, and you try to report what they say, and people say, well, that's not true because of yada, 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 or it's because of hoo-ha, or whatever. And there's always an excuse not to hear anything, even if it's in the Lancet, which has not been perfect, or the European Journal of Epidemiology, or other legitimate sources that are giving us information, and it's being fought in courts, not with great success, but things can be turning soon based on people's decisions to fight them and just not to comply. You don't really even have to fight. You just have to not go along with it. You have to just not let somebody put something in your arm that has the potential to put in graphene dioxide, which is a very dangerous thing. That is, people have shown evidence that is occurring, and it is deadly in your blood vessels, and it's a vascular disease more than it is a respiratory disease. Where is the legitimate debate? I'm not talking about Peter Doocy and Jen Psaki, battering things around with each other, bantering, whatever. That's just, they're playing. But the real lives of people are at stake. Children are being required to wear masks, or they can't enter restaurants or go to places, or go to school. I mean, these are huge things to put on children. And how can you explain it to a child? How can you force a mask onto a 2-year-old? How can you deny them the ability to learn in an environment that's based on truth and scientific reason and rationality? And if there's no debate allowed, if there's no discussion, and you just demonize people who disagree with you about your choices. And I am not here to demonize anybody, but I am just calling foul to this whole holiday hazing. And I was thinking of calling this video a cold-hearted or cold-blooded Christmas, because to continue to deny family the chance to connect beyond the things that happened that year, the news of that year, is a way to cement this into place and to make it more important and to split families for good, because you can't keep doing this to a family. They sooner or later, people just separate. They don't talk anymore. They don't try, because there's no common ground, because they won't let us have common ground. So it's got to come down to where we don't cooperate with them, those who divide us, whoever they are. It's the they that's dividing us, that cannot be abided anymore. So I'm standing my ground on, I'd love to see my family, but I'm not going to have them predicated on a condition that I stick something up my nose that can break off, that can be in there, that has unknown components to it, that's designed like one of those worms with those metallic objects at the top of the Q-tip that scrape and take DNA right up in that crib, the bone that's so thin right up there that people have, that it's a blood-brain barrier, can be broken by improperly inserting it. And people have been injured just by swabs. Even so, what is being inserted into you? What is being put up there? Now they're saying they can start doing it with pill form or with a nose swab. Who knows what's going on in these so-called tests that have been proven over and over again not to be evidence of infection by the guy himself, Carrie Mullis, who was very strangely died of pneumonia at the age of 74, about a month or two before the vaccines rolled out. He would have been somebody with gravitas who could have said what he said to Fauci back with the AIDS crisis and Fauci's efforts to push AZT and other things that really were caused him to be